Hi, everyone. My name is Greg, and welcome back to the podcast, My First Season. In this podcast, I interview people who work for resorts, hotels, cruise ships, and airlines, and we'll talk about their first season in the travel and tourism industry. My guest today and I worked together at Club Med Columbus Isle, Bahamas in 99-2000. That's right. We survived Y2K together. His first season was in Cancun in 1998, and he's going to tell us all about it. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, please help me welcome Nick Margellos. Nick, how are you, sir?
Hey, Greg. How's it going?
Good. Everything okay in Las Vegas? I think that's where you are.
It is, yeah. Me and Veronica live here in Las Vegas now.
And you're originally from Vancouver, I think?
Originally from Vancouver, Canada, correct.
That's right. Okay. Where about in Vancouver?
I grew up really in the heart of the city. I spent most of my time in Kitsilano and the downtown area. So okay. It was nice. And we actually, are looking forward to maybe moving back there one day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I guess you have dual citizenship now, I'm guessing.
I do, yes.
Lucky. So you went from Vancouver to Vegas. So what's any culture shock when you go from Vancouver to Vegas? Besides the heat?
Quite a lot. The heat is the big one. I find it weird when I go north that the sun in the summers, because we usually go up and visit my family in the summer, and the sun sets at like 10 o'clock at night because it's so much further north than where we are.
That's true.
So, it's a little bizarre when it's 10 or 10:30 and the sun is still up for us. So.
It's almost like going from Vegas to Alaska, huh? Okay.
Oh, a little bit.
All right. So you know why we're here and what we do. I'm here to learn all about your first season, even though I met you in 2000. I don't know if I asked you about. So forgive me if I didn't ask you about it then, or I forgot. But if you can just take me back in time and tell me where you were, what you were doing, were you going to school, working, and then how'd you find out about Club Med?
Well, sure. I'm going to cheat a little because Cancun 98 was my first season for when I worked continuously for the club. But I actually worked for Club Med in 1993 as an au pair in Sonora Bay, Mexico.
Okay, so were you in Vancouver before that?
I was.
What were you
just
doing?
Graduated high school, and my sister and I went down to Sonora Bay for 2 weeks on vacation as a little bit of a graduation present, and we were there, had a great time. We made a lot of really good friends. And I had become a scuba instructor that summer, and the scuba team needed a couple of scuba instructors. So they asked if I'd stay. And I told my sister, I said, go home and tell my job I quit. I'm going to stay here.
Wait, what were you doing in Vancouver for a job?
Well, I was working in a warehouse, so it wasn't anything glorious. I wasn't on any kind of career path to greatness. It was just driving a forklift in a warehouse.
So you're like, I'm going to go swim with the seals, tell them I quit, right? Basically.
Exactly. Yeah, it was. I ended up staying there for about 2 more months and helped close the village, and then I went home after that.
Okay, let's back up just a bit. So what made you decide to be a scuba instructor?
I've been scuba diving since I was about 11 years old. I did probably my first 400 scuba dives up in British Columbia. It's really considered some of the best cold water scuba diving in the world.
Did someone get you into it, or you just came to it on your own?
They came to our school and let us try it out in our pool, and I just fell in love with it. And it turned out to be one of the couple of sports or hobbies that I was really into, and I dove on weekends all the time and just wanted to become a scuba instructor.
So do you remember the first time? So I guess you do. I think everyone remembers their first time when you're actually have the regulator in your mouth and you're breathing underwater. Do you remember that?
Well, it's a few years ago, but I can't say I remember the exact time, but I remember the joy that I used to feel when I would go in and I would do classes in their pool down on Granville Island, and then going out on weekends for ocean dives. It was a lot of fun. It was a nice little community.
So when you stayed in Sonora Bay, did you do the dive with the seals?
Of course. That's the highlight of Sonora Bay, going out to Seal Island and playing with the sea lions and seals.
Yeah, I was there on vacation in 95 myself, and that's probably the best dive I ever had. And even though they tell you what to expect, you can't really expect a seal coming at you 30 miles an hour, turning on a dime in front of your face. And,
Yeah, I still say that those sea lions are my favorite animal to swim with. And I've had a chance now to swim with sharks, turtles, whale sharks, manta rays, all of these different animals. But those seals were still my favorite. They just love to play with the scuba divers and play with our bubbles. They love to try to scare you, exactly like you said. One of the fun games we used to always play with them was copycat. And you'd get one that would come and look at you, kind of tilt in its head, and you'd do a somersault in the water. And then all of a sudden they'd look at you really weird and they'd do a somersault. And then you do a twist and they'd do a twist and they'd try to imitate you. It was really neat.
And I guess you also saw when the big mama drops into the water too, right? She makes
the
quite a
big bull
noise, right?
seal.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they don't like how close you're getting to the young ones, they'll come along and bark at you, spit a little air at you, or even grab your fin and shake you around a little bit.
So did they ask for any credentials? Did the chief of sport or chief of village ask for any credentials? Or you just said, hey, I'm a scuba instructor, you need help? Or did anyone ask you anything?
Well, I had my instructor card. Obviously, I was a couple months in and as an instructor, and so I was showing off that PADI open water instructor card,
it's a chick magnet, that card, I hear, right?
It was my passport or something. I mean, I wanted everyone to know, because I was a young 18-year-old kid, and I wanted everyone to know, here I am. I'm an instructor, and so yeah, it just came up one time where they said that they were looking for instructors, and I said, well, I'll stay. And I offered, and they said, yeah, I'll talk to the chief of village. And they got back to me later that day and said, yeah, if you want to stay, you can stay au pair or room and board and stay to close the season, because that way other instructors can go to their next villages and not get delayed.
You said this was Sonora Bay in 93?
Correct.
Okay, so what happened from 93 to 98? Did you go back to Vancouver?
Yeah, so I ended up going back to Vancouver. One of my other big pastimes was rugby. And I had a tryout, and I had made a Canadian junior rugby tour that was going to go over to Europe. And so I was very excited that I had a potential career ahead of me in rugby. I ended up getting bumped off the tour, a funny story for later.
Okay.
But I ended up deciding to go down, and I moved down to New Zealand for a year to get really good at rugby. And I wanted to try to go professional playing rugby. So when I was, I guess, 19, by the time that all happened, I went down and I played rugby in New Zealand for a year.
Wow, that's probably a whole other podcast in itself. Did they eat you alive at first, or were they all friendly?
It was pretty funny because when they heard my accent and they knew I was from Canada, they're like, "Do you even play rugby in Canada?" And I tried to be play it a little coy, and I ended up earning a lot of their respect. I played 2 seasons there. I played a lot of hard rugby. The bummer, though, was that I ended up taking a string of concussions right at the end of my last season. So it basically ended my professional career before it started. And so I sort of sulked back to Vancouver and was sitting around there. And I wasn't playing rugby. I was
Nick, can I ask what position you were playing to get all these concussions?
In the back row, I was playing flanker number 8.
Oh, okay,
so
got it.
Doing a lot of high-speed tackling.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense now. Okay, yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Back in Vancouver?
No problem. No, so I went back to Vancouver, and I was just sitting around. I'd got a job at another warehouse. I was a forklift driver, and and sitting there in the middle of winter in Vancouver in the pouring rain. It's all cloudy and miserable, and I was just thinking about it. I'm like, I would be an absolute fool if I didn't try that Club Med thing again. And so I called the Club Med office, and I think it was like a Friday. And I said, I worked au pair back in 93. Can I come by and can I come and work again? They're like, well, you do need to interview, and we'll be up in Vancouver in about 4 months doing interviews, or we do interviews down here in Sandpiper every Monday. So I said, okay, I'll be there Monday. And I went and I bought a ticket and I flew down there on Monday and I went and did an interview.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was. So when my mind was made up, I went.
All right, so you flew from Vancouver. Now, are we now in 98 now?
Yeah, so 97. It was 97. The latter part of 97. I think it was probably November or December in Vancouver. But I flew down. I did the interview. They said, how much notice do you need? I go, maybe 3 days. And And so they said, okay. And I came home, and they didn't call me until January, but they called me in January. They said, we have a position in Cancun available, but we do need you there as soon as possible. So if you can come down, we'll send you a ticket. I said, okay. So I spent 3 days wrapping my life up in Vancouver, sold my car. I told my roommate that I was leaving and packed up all my stuff and put it at my parents' house. And 3 days later, I was down in Cancun.
Okay, now wait a sec. You don't get off that easy, because I hear a lot of stories about Club Med interviews. So did they make you do crazy signs, tell a joke, or is it just one-on-one interview, you and someone else? Do you recall the person that interviewed you?
I don't recall who it was. It was a really nice lady from Canada who lived in the States. I'm afraid I don't know her name.
That's okay.
I don't remember a lot from the interview, so I wish I could tell you a little bit more.
But you would have remembered if they made you sing and dance, though, right?
I would imagine. I'm sure that many of the questions were, "Are you willing to do these things?" Which I adamantly was like, "Yes." You know me from Columbus. I don't shy away from doing crazy signs or shows. So I'm sure that I was very enthusiastic about it.
All right. So, okay. So you pack up your whole life, and had you ever been to Cancun, Mexico before?
I had not. I had traveled a lot before. My mom worked for an airline, and so I'd been over to Asia, obviously New Zealand, to Europe, and I had actually visited Club Med even before that Sonora trip. I had been to Turks and Caicos, so I was familiar with traveling around, the Caribbean and different places. So,
what year were you in Turks? Do you remember?
1990.
Oh, wow. Okay. And wait a minute. So you weren't 18 then?
No, it wasn't a 18 and over club at that time.
Oh, no, I know. No, I know.
I went.
Yeah, you must have been pretty wide-eyed, I'd imagine. That.
Yes, that one was a bit of a shocker.
Yeah.
I'm sure I had some moments with that.
Yeah, I don't know what this is, but I like this. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what my thoughts were. Yeah, I think that was my general feeling was that this is a great place to be. Maybe I should work on getting my instructor.
So if you were in Cancun in 98, were you part of that big team? Because I'd interviewed some people who were there in 97. So I'm wondering if any of these guys stayed over in 98. So who was your chief of village then in 98?
So my chief of village was Kevin Batt.
Okay, that's right.
And he was there. We were closing the village down. It was going to be going under major renovations.
Because of a hurricane, or just because of because of a hurricane, or just renovations in general?
Just renovations in general. That was a major upgrade to the village at the time. They were trying to turn it into one of the flagships of Club Med in the North American zone. So they were planning on closing it down, and it was actually the last season of Scuba at Cancun.
That's right. Okay. And where were you going for dives then in Cancun? Like, I guess it was all excursion, or you left from the I guess from where the pool is. Sometimes boats could pull up there, right? I think to Lagoon side, or no?
No. We actually had a building down there, and there's a dock. The dock is still there, way on the or right by the presidential palace. Past windsurfing, past snorkeling.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, that's right.
By the G.O rooms.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah, which was nice because you could wake up in 3 minutes and you were there, whereas all the other GOs who had to go to the boutique or into the village had to walk, the 10-15 minutes that it took to walk from the casitas into the village. So we were fortunate for that. But if you wanted to get breakfast before, or if you had to run into the village for the Sundance or something like that, it was a long way to go.
So did you put like boxes of cereal in your safe like I did?
I'm sure. Okay. I'm sure I had a lot of snacks and things like that there ready to go. Yeah.
So did the scuba team kind of initiate you at all? Because, I remember when I did Turks, I wasn't an instructor, but I did get initiated. So I was just curious, being a new guy, did they put a piece of pizza in your buoyancy vest and then the Durgeons came after you or anything like that?
No, I don't remember anything like that. Winnie was my chief of scuba, and Winnie certainly wasn't against practical jokes. Okay. But no, I think he was a really good sport about it. It's actually really funny. The night that I got there, I arrived at probably about 11 o'clock at night. And the assistant chief of scuba was this guy, Andre Lacroix, really nice guy. He came and picked me up from the front, but he was decked out in 70s gear because it was 70s night at the disco. And so, he took me to my room, and first thing he said, he's like, "We got to get you decked out in 70s. You got to come party. Scuba team owns 70s night." So it was back in the days when the scuba team, really liked to party. And so, they found a wig for me, some glasses, a shirt, and all this, and took me there. Introduced me to Winnie. Winnie's buying me drinks, and we're dancing, we're having a good time. And he's like, just come in the morning, don't worry about it, and we'll get you on one of the boats. I think we had like a 715 and a 915 boat. So we had a great time that night. It was a fun way to kind of arrive and go full throttle. So the next morning I wake up, and it was like probably about 7:30, and I wander down to the scuba shack. Winnie's sitting there. He's a little bit hungover. He's got his glasses on, and I walk up and I'm like, "Hey, Winnie," and he's like, he looks at me, tilts the glasses down. "Look, mate, if you're gonna come, the boat's not gonna wait for you. So when you sign up for the 7:15 boat, you got to be here on time." I'm like, "Winnie, it's me. It's Nick. I was with you all night last night." He didn't even recognize me, and he's like, "Oh, okay." He took me in and got me some equipment, and he's like, "Well, let's go for a dive on the 915 boat." So we ended up going out on the 915 boat.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
Sure, that inspires confidence.
It's very Winnie.
So he mistook you for a GM is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he just thought I was an obnoxious guest that was arriving late for the boat.
Didn't have your chip. Yeah. Okay.
Of course, yeah. Wanted the special treatment. So
About how big was your team, your scuba team in Cancun then?
I think we were about 13 or 14.
What, really?
I think it was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a big scuba team. We had a lot of guys. It was mostly Canadians and Americans, but we had about 3 or 4 French instructors, a couple female French instructors, and a couple of male French instructors from France. And then it was just a few of us. There was a few of us from Canada, a couple guys from the States. Yeah.
Did you do night dives there?
We did. We
Okay.
did. That was actually like the best night there.
Yeah.
Because Winnie, in his fashion, would negotiate a huge dinner and barbecue afterwards.
Yeah.
So we'd all go down for the night dive, and half the instructors would go and take people night diving. The other half stuck around, and we used to get, cuts of chicken, hamburgers, steak, all the trimmings you could think of. Winnie would get a keg of beer for us, and it would be a big party. And what was really funny is a lot of other GOs would come and hang out for the scuba barbecue after the night dive, GOs from other teams. And eventually we'd always get like a bunch of guests who didn't even scuba dive, but they knew that they'd heard that it was a big party. So they'd come down and they'd party. We'd have music, we'd have maybe a bonfire going on the beach. It was a lot of fun.
Now, did you start off by logging dives when you were there in 98, or you started and you went, I can't do this anymore, I'm diving every day? Did you start off at least logging, or you never logged at all?
No, I started off logging, and truthfully, it's one of my big regrets that I didn't continue logging dives. I ballpark that by the end of my career, I'd probably done somewhere between 3,500 to 4,000 dives in my life, most of them in Club Med. And but I don't know that exact number. And then I remember in Columbus, Crystal Bolduc, she was up at 900 or 1,000 dives, and she logged every dive. And I realized that I probably should have kept track. I wish I was better about it, but I think I got about halfway through that season and then stopped logging dives.
How many do you think you did overall again?
Probably about 3,500 to 4,000 is what I've calculated.
That's pretty impressive. That's a lot of water time blowing bubbles, my friend. Okay.
And I have to preface that. Some of that is scuba diving I do here in the desert, or that I used to do here, because I used to work for one of the shows on the Strip, and it was like a Cirque du Soleil type show. It's called Le Rêve, and it was in a big pool. And I used to scuba dive underwater during the shows. And so I'm counting those dives as well. So I probably did 1,500 or a couple thousand shows scuba diving underwater during these shows. But I would say total of all of those dives between Club Med and Le Rêve, it was probably about 3,500 to 4,000.
Just because I'm a little interested in this. So how long were you in the pool during one of the shows for? 45 minutes, an hour?
Yeah, the show was about 75 minutes, and we'd spend probably about 50 minutes of that 75 minutes underwater during the shows. And then we'd have
5-0 or 1-5?
5-0.
Oh, okay. So you didn't have to
And
equalize, I mean, or decompress after, because you're shallow, right? I guess, or
yeah, the deepest part of the pool was about 25 feet.
okay.
And but oftentimes we'd be hanging out about 10 or 12 feet below the water. And yeah, it was neat. It was they had these big hydraulic lifts that would lift the stage up and down. So the stage would come down. We'd put props and set on the stage so it'd come up and look all different. Performers would do an act and then they'd jump in the water and disappear. Well, we'd be there and we'd catch them, put them on scuba, take them out through these underwater tunnels, and then bring new performers out who would appear out of nowhere, for the illusion for the audience. And obviously we're safety and things like that. So
okay, well, sounds like another episode here, so I'm going to stop you there. Okay, we're gonna talk after this recording. Okay, all right, so we'll go back to Cancun. So okay. I guess being a world traveler and already being to, you traveled, I think I recall even you telling me, are you fidgeting with something in your hands? Are you breaking my golden rule? Or is that the Corona? Are you popping a Corona? What are you doing there? Okay.
No, I was just adjusting in my seat, but
I think I recall you telling me, since your mom, which airline did she work for again?
She worked for Cathay Pacific.
Oh, that's right. I remember you telling me you felt like going to the Hong Kong Sevens rugby tournament, and you just went, right? I think I remember you telling me this.
I ended up going to 3 or 4 of them.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you probably had zero culture shock whatsoever when you started 98, right? Like you were used to Europeans. You've been everywhere, so I guess you didn't have any culture shock other than maybe topless women on the beach, I'm guessing. But then again, you probably had zero culture shock. Like you just fit right in, right?
Yeah, it wasn't too much of a shock. I'll tell you what one of the big shocks was for me was New Yorkers. I hadn't had a lot of experience dealing with New Yorkers. And at that time, we used to have a charter of 300 New Yorkers that would come down every week. So that one was a bit of a culture shock for me.
Yeah.
I remember the one that stands out for me the most that really, symbolizes my experience with New Yorkers. I had probably in my first couple of weeks of teaching scuba there, I had a class and we were doing the Club Med Resort course. So it was, we do the lesson one and lesson two. Lesson one, we do a little briefing, we talk about the do's and don'ts, don't hold your breath, equalize early and often, and introduce them to the equipment. And then we would walk out on the dock and we'd show them how to set the equipment up. I brought my class out. I think I had like 3 guys, 3 girls, all from New York. We set the equipment up and then I showed them what we're going to practice in the water. It was, mask clearing, recovering your regulator, all that stuff. So I thought I did a pretty good job and I briefed them. And then, I look at them and I said, okay, let's get suited up and go. And this one girl just looks at me and goes, nope. And I was like, what? She's like, nope, not going to do it. See you later. I'm going to the bar. And I was like, what just happened? And she just walked off and just didn't want to do it. And afterwards I went and I talked with her and we ended up being like really good friends all week. And she's like, yeah, I knew that I wouldn't enjoy it. I knew that I would panic in the water. So why am I going to go in and do it? I'm not going to waste my time doing that. And that was my introduction to New Yorkers, where they just don't waste their time. They're not going to sugarcoat things. They're not going to, go in the water and because they don't want to hurt your feelings or something like that. She knew she wasn't going to do it. And so she just walked away. And I was like, okay, this is what New Yorkers are like. They're going to tell you exactly what they think. They're going to do what they want. And they just don't have time for, messing around. So
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you arrived, you said 98. So would this have been like January, February that you arrived?
Yeah, I think it was January. I think it was like the end of January, right? A couple weeks before Valentine's Day, as I remember. So.
Okay, so you got to spend Christmas and New Year's at home. So were you happy about that, knowing later on in your Club Med career how hard and difficult it is to work on Christmas and New Year's? Like, would you realize that at the time that you dodged a bullet or no?
I don't know. I'd never really thought of it as that much as work. When it comes to the Club Med life, I just enjoyed it so much that even on the days where it would get really busy and, the holidays and all of that, it was something new. It was something fun. We got to do different activities. You got to, I think I did Easter in Cancun, and Kevin got a bunch of animals from the zoo. You got the zookeepers to bring some animals. So we had like a lion, a cheetah, they brought a camel. And they needed somebody to ride the camel in. I can't even remember what the costume was, but they looked at me because I was willing to do anything. I was a young guy willing to jump in and try anything. So they said, do you want to ride the camel into the village for this skit, for this passage? I was like, yeah, of course. So I have a picture of me riding a camel into the main village. I think I was just delivering some Easter prize or something like that. For me, I enjoyed the holidays. I always found it to be more fun. So I guess to answer your question, I probably would have regretted not being there for Christmas and New Year.
Now, you mentioned activities, and I remember you were quite the dancer in Columbus. So now, did that come easy for you, or you had to learn?
You're very kind, because
no, I remember you in the Austin Powers show. Of course, I'd sit in that theater and there was no one else in there, but you guys were giving it your all. And I remember you in the front row. Now, did you become a good dancer, or you always were?
I'd say I became a good dancer because of Club Med. In my early seasons, they always told me that I was going to be in the back row because I was tall. Yeah. I learned after a little while that was just a line that they gave to people like me who were clumsy and uncoordinated.
Yes. I myself started in the back row, but then the choreographers, they're pretty clever, because once they realize you can do an 8 count and you can memorize steps, then slowly you advance. So your height doesn't really matter anymore. It's just that you can remember the steps, I've noticed.
Yes. Well, the typical French choreographer's test was the pas de bourrée. Can you do a pas de bourrée? Yeah. And if you could do one, then they would put you in some of the more advanced numbers.
Yeah, like a techno can. Okay.
Oh man, that's bringing back some memories.
So while you were in the resort of Cancun, did you ever look around at what other people were doing, like the land sports guy, and say, I want to try that, or you always wanted to stay a scuba instructor?
I think at that time I really enjoyed scuba so much that I just wanted to stay in scuba. I did my first couple seasons, because after Cancun, I went to back to Sonora Bay. I did scuba there. But my third season, the one after that, I actually went to Copper Mountain and was a snowboard instructor. And I think that was fun as an eye-opening experience of trying a different service and realizing that there was a lot more to offer in the Club Med world than just staying on the scuba team. There was always a lot of prestige with the scuba team. We were always the biggest team on the sports team. And I had Winnie as my chief of scuba for my first couple of seasons. And he always took a lot of pride in the scuba team being number one on the sports team. So I think there was that natural attraction just to stay on the sports team, or on the scuba team, for a while.
Who was your chief of sports there?
My chief of sports was this Italian guy named Geronimo.
Oh yeah, okay.
Do you know Geronimo?
I know the name. I mean, I've never met him, but yeah. I know of him. Yes.
He was probably one of the first Italian guys I met, and he was a very typical Italian in that he just had a ton of energy, and he just loved people. He loved being around people. He spoke like 5 or 6 languages, so all of his announcements, he would just effortlessly jump language to language. And he was a really nice guy. He was a really good leader, as far as a lot of people everybody respected what he did. We had one incident. We had some rough seas, and we were trying to get our big scuba boat through the reef, the gap in the reef. During that, the rescue boat, the little Boston whaler that we had, broke free, and one of the instructors jumped in to go and to try to bring it back, but it got flipped onto the reef, and the instructor was fine. He swam back to our big boat, but we had to call the Cancun police and tell them that our boat was on the reef and all of that. And so we had to go and find Geronimo. And I vividly remember his first reaction. And this was something that I always tried to emulate. His first reaction, more than anything, he just stopped everything. He goes, "Is everybody okay? Did anybody get hurt? Does anybody need to go to the hospital?" And we were like, "No, everyone's all right." He just took a breath. "Okay, let's move on. Let's go, and we'll figure out how we can get the boat off the reef." But I always respected him for that, and I always tried to emulate that, because he, as a leader, he was really good about caring about his people first and foremost, and their safety of his people. So I thought that was kind of a quality that I always wanted to have when I became a leader.
Yeah, it is. Besides Geronimo, were there any other GOs? Like they didn't have to be a chief of service or anything, but did any other GOs stand out to you in a positive way?
Well, I mean, I made a lot of good friends that season. One of the scuba instructors that I ended up going to Sonora Bay with was this guy Mark Scuba, and we ended up becoming. We're still in contact on Facebook all the time. He lives in Montreal now. He only did a couple seasons. Let's see, who else did we have there that season? It was a very bizarre season because it was most of the GOs were going off to other villages. I think we closed in at the end of April. So that was beyond the normal transition time. Usually everyone in, the end of March to the beginning of April, everyone's switching villages. So all the people that were staying were people that were okay with closing the village down so that it could go through its renovations. And so it was hard for me because I was having to see a lot of people go, all these people that I was making friends with because I was the new guy there. And they were all kind of on the tail end of their season as we got closer to it. And they were all leaving, and there were just, more or less a skeleton crew by the end, staying and closing the village out.
Besides your first night scuba 70s party and the rough sea story, do you have any other clean appropriate stories that you recall that happened from that first season? It doesn't have to be funny, but I don't know. Did you go on excursion or anything happen at Daddy-O's? I don't know.
No, I did. I had that was back in the day when we used to work 7 days a week. It was, that was a normal thing. I remember that the equinox was going to be happening at Chichen Itza, the Mayan ruins.
Oh, yes.
And during the equinox, the Kukulkan, the big pyramid, would have a snake tail going down the side from the angle of the sun.
That's right.
For like 3 days. And there would always be big parties and big festivals at Chichen Itza. So I remember I had to beg Winnie for probably 3 weeks, and he would make me do all of these horrible duties so that I could have that day off and I could go out to Chichen Itza to witness it and to see the snake tail down the Kukulkan pyramid.
Oh wait, was one of those duties cleaning vomit out of the regulators?
No, the fish did that very nicely, so
okay.
We never had too much of a problem with that.
Okay, sorry, go on.
No. So that was one of my most memorable moments of that first season was getting to go out and to witness that. I'm a little bit of a history buff, and I really enjoy witnessing or seeing the ruins and all of that. So to be there during that special time was pretty cool.
Oh, great. I'm guessing you're the type of guy that likes crazy signs. I don't know why. It's just a vibe I get. So if you did, do you have a top three? I just see you, like I'm recalling you in Columbus. You always had a smile on your face. I don't know if you like.
No, I love crazy.
Did you like Muevelo? People seem to love Muevelo. I don't know.
Not like Muevelo.
Okay.
No, I was a bit of a traditionalist. I'd probably say that Hands Up was still my favorite. And I think it just evoked a lot of really happy memories for me, probably even from when I was a guest in my GM days, because it was such a universal crazy sign. But I also got into Move Your...
Oh, yes, Move Your Butt.
Trying to be nice for your podcast.
Move your butt. Yeah.
Yes. That one.
Techno, spastic techno dance. Yeah.
I liked that one because it was basically the opposite direction. It was how much energy you could put into your crazy sign.
Yeah.
And then I think my third favorite crazy sign was one that started 2 or 3 years later was ice cream. Remember that one?
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. Was that a Spanish one? I think. No, it wasn't. Oh, wait, ice cream. I
remember like just slide a little.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, it was. I don't know why. I just really loved that one. I got into it when we did a season in Turks and Caicos, and so that was probably another one of the ones that I just loved being up on stage doing.
In the years that you left Club Med, did you ever find yourself, I don't know, say in a grocery store or something, and you hear a song and you go, "Oh, this would make such a good crazy sign"? Did it ever happen to you when you heard a song?
Oh yeah, of course. You never stop being a GO. I remember recommending a friend to become a GO, and she ended up going, and she was a choreographer for a while, but it was basically, I told her that at the 2-year mark, once you've done about 2 years in Club Med, you're a GO for life. Like you're a Club Medder for life, and you never really get it out of your system. There's people that go and they do a season or a couple seasons, and they think fondly of their time in Club Med. But the ones who stayed a long time, the ones who got past that 2-year mark, were the ones that just became Club Med lifers, like GO lifers. And you always remember your Club Med times. You just think about things differently. You interact with people differently. So that happens all the time, where you'd hear music or you would do that. I think it took me 6 months to get out of my system of walking down the sidewalk and not saying hello to people. I would randomly be walking
Yeah.
around Las Vegas and just being like, hey, how's it going? Hello. And getting these freaky looks from people because it was just so natural by the end of my Club Med career to say hello to people as you walk by and just to do the little things, hold the door open, big smile all the time. It just, that was the world we lived in. And it took it still is a kind of a big part of our life.
Well said. I could not agree more. I had the same problem. So just out of curiosity, is Cancun where you met your future wife, Veronica?
It is. Except it was 2 years later.
Whoa. All right.
I met her. Yeah, I did Cancun, and I was there for about 3 or 4 months. And then I went to Sonora Bay.
Wait, did you request Sonora, or that's where they said?
I did.
Nick,
Winnie was going there.
Oh, okay.
And Winnie had gotten along so well, so he had requested me to come with him, which was really exciting. But I did Sonora. That was actually Hammer's first season, so it was a pretty magical season. And I ended up staying with Hammer for 3 seasons. So we went to Copper Mountain after that, and I was a snowboard instructor. And then we went back to Cancun, and that's where I met Veronica.
So this would have been in what, 2001?
99.
Oh, 99. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. So, okay. Yeah. So I'm going to have her on later. Okay. So let's see if she remembers the story. Okay. Let's hope their stories match up. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So when I met you guys in 99, 2000, yes, you were a couple. I was just curious where you had met.
Yeah. We had met the season before. I went from Cancun to Columbus, where I met you, and she came shortly thereafter.
Yeah, you probably weren't aware of this, but I kind of had a guy crush on you in Columbus, like platonic, of course, but I don't know if you sensed that, but I don't know, I just liked you a lot, I don't know if you sensed this. It was a guy crush, I'll call it that,
Fair enough.
So cool, so nice, always in a good mood,
Well, thanks, Greg. I can't say I was fully aware of that, but I mean, I always considered you one of my close friends.
I hit it well. Yeah, no, it was hard. I remember leaving. Like, it was hard leaving you. I remember it was. I think we're outside the disco, and I'm like, "What's going on here? What are these feelings? I don't have feelings." Okay.
Oh, Greg, my man crush. Awesome.
Well, that was a great, like I mentioned to you a couple of days ago, that was, even though it was my 3rd time there, I didn't really want to go but I love Columbus, but that the team there that was assembled was like, wow, talk about a lot of talent that was there. So you and a lot of other people just made me forget, and it was a beautiful time, beautiful resort, and nothing but good memories from that season.
No, it was. It was a great team, and I made a lot of lifelong friends. I think I was pretty fortunate, especially in those first few years, to be a part of some really amazing team. Hammer had put together a really amazing team, and that he had a great group of guys that would go around. So I did 3 seasons with Hammer as chief of village, and then Columbus was just, it was fantastic. It was a magical season. We spent a year there. We did, like you said, Y2K there, which was a lot of fun. But it was those were a lot of really great times, and I think that's what hooked me on Club Med so much, was getting to be a part of some really good teams and meeting a lot of really good people, especially in those early years, and that's what really kept me going in Club Med for so long.
So what year did you leave Club Med?
I left in the end of 2004. December of 2004.
What was your last position?
We were I was chief of sports. So I'd done a couple seasons as chief of scuba, some really successful ones in Turks and in Columbus. And I'd done the chief of sports stage, and me and Veronica went to Kibera in Japan. And we did a season there. And I guess it's a similar story to you from Columbus, in that at the end of the season, we worked hard. I thought I'd put in a really good season, but they didn't have a village for me as chief of sports. And they basically, the effector in Paris said, go home, and maybe in April or May, we'll have a village for you. After everything that I'd done in Club Med and having risen to chief of sport and there was a little talk of potentially, in a couple of years of becoming, going on to the chief of village list. I guess at the time I felt like it was a little bit of a snub that they couldn't find somewhere to send me and Veronica. And so in my heart, I think I lost a lot of steam for Club Med. And we just decided that it was the right time to settle down. And Veronica was okay with it. I was okay with it. And we had to figure out where we were going to live because Vancouver was very expensive and California was. So we settled on Vegas.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's a good compromise, right? I mean, who doesn't
Well,
love Vegas?
Transition city. Yeah, well, it's a good transition city because like a Club Med village, there's always a lot going on. I think that was the hardest part about going back to reality was, what would happen in the span of a week in Club Med. I always called it like Melrose Place to date myself, but I always thought of it like Melrose Place where, you'd have a week, sort of like an episode, and all these things would happen. This person would meet this person would have a fight with this person, this drama would go on, we'd be dancing crazy signs. It would be, this whirlwind throughout the week. And then at the end of the week, all the guests left, new guests came, and it all started again like a new episode. And then when you go home, it was the reality set in, whereas instead of in the span of a week, all of these events would happen over the span of a couple months. And it was this almost like a detox of stimulation that you would feel when you left Club Med, because you're so used to that fast-paced lifestyle, always being around, all of that. And then to come to a place where you just work 9 to 5, where your nights are off, you can go to bed whenever you want, you're not doing rehearsals at 1 a.m. It was a little weird transitioning back to normal life. Vegas, a good a nice happy medium, because Vegas did have more of a nightlife, more entertainment and things like that.
Okay, I heard you use my secret word magical for 2 different seasons, because usually one of my last questions is, which season of yours did you find was magical? What, I mean, you could like resorts for different reasons, but I'm just curious if you have one that was magical over all the others. Was it your first one because it was your first season in Cancun, or do you consider another one like really magical?
That's a hard one, because
you can plead the fifth. Like, you don't have to answer it. You can say they all were. It's no problem.
Well, I'm not going to say they all were,
Okay.
because I think I did 7 years or almost 7 years in Club Med, so you're bound to have one where there's some hiccups, or that it didn't go as well as the other. The season in Columbus that we did together was certainly one of those magical seasons for me. I ended up going back, and I had a great season when I went back about 3 years later, but there was something about that year that was just, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, no, it's true, because I did Columbus twice for a year stretch, and that last time, the third, my third trip there was different from those 4 that I'd already did. So no, the talent was just so stacked. I mean, the team was, geez, it was crazy how much talent was there. I mean, look, even one of the lifeguards at the pool is a chief of village now. I mean, come on, that's how much talent we had. Duda became chief of village. I mean, this is if you've never been to Columbus, you'll laugh that he even had a lifeguard, but there was 2 lifeguards for the pool of Columbus, which was shaped like a postage stamp. So
I know, it's amazing. No, it was, and I would say that my other season was Sonora in '98, the one after my first season, so my second season, because it was Hammer's first season as chief of village. Everyone wanted it to succeed, and we had just a tremendous amount of talent and characters, and just a lot of great memories, some rent-a-villages, where the whole village gets rented out, and those were some pretty amazing seasons, and I still keep in contact with so many of those people. What I always love about it is that I pick up right where I left off with a lot of those friends. For instance, I had one of my best friends from Sonora was this hostess named Holly. Great friend. Obviously, we followed each other on Facebook, but we hadn't even contacted each other probably in 15 years. And then I knew that she lived in Florida, in Jacksonville, or near Jacksonville in St. Augustine. And just out of the blue, I got assigned a trip to Jacksonville, and I had about a 20-hour layover. And so I was like, I'm going to rent a car and I'm going to go pop down and say hi. What I found amazing was, and I've done this now with a bunch of GOs, because I'm I'm a pilot. I fly all over the United States.
Yeah. You just ruined my next question, but okay, no
I
problem.
know.
Don't say too much, because Nick has agreed to come on for another podcast where he's going to tell us about the airline industry. So yeah, don't say too much right now.
All right. But one of the neat things that I've done is to reconnect with people that I haven't seen in 10 or 15 years. And what I find amazing is that we just pick up right where we left off. It's as if I saw them the week before. We see each other, we say hi, we start joking, we talk about the old times, and we go right into it. And that's for me so emblematic of what Club Med life was like, of why so many of us, were, for lack of a better term, addicted to Club Med life, because the interactions were so genuine and so real, and they were lifelong. And it just, it was really neat to reconnect with people like that, and to have that experience of not seeing them for 15 years, coming and just picking up like we were working in the same village again, or working in the village that we were in before. And it reaffirmed how great Club Med is, and how great of friendships and how great of a life it was working in there, and being able to pick up like that with these old friends.
Well, that's well said, sir. You were absolutely right. I could not have put it better. Do you have any advice for someone listening to this who's thinking about doing working at Club Med? Should they do it?
Oh my God, yes. It's such you really do have to be a people person. You have to want to be around people, because Club Med it's just an abundance of experiences. And what's funny is my son, me and Veronica's son, Tristan, he's 13 now, and we're here in Las Vegas. He's doing a circus school here in Las Vegas. So he does trapeze, he does trampoline and tramp wall, and he's doing all these different circus acts. And he's already told us that when he turns 18, he wants to become a G.O. And the one thing that I keep trying to tell him is, you've got to be ready just to jump into experiences. You've got to be ready to open up and try new things, because those are the memories you have. My memory of riding a camel in Cancun, my memory of, my New Yorker, my memory of, doing different scuba dives. That's the advice that I would have, is just, if it's something you want to do, just do it. And when you get there, don't hold back. When someone invites you to do something, when someone encourages you to try something new, when a choreographer encourages you to try a dance number and you're nervous, you're not quite sure whether you should do something like that, just do it, because that's where you really find yourself, and you find friends, and you create bonds, and you have these great stories of things that happen that maybe wouldn't have happened if you hadn't have jumped in and just tried it. So it's sort of that just do it mentality.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nick, for coming on the show. And I'm not saying goodbye to you, because I know you agreed to come on later and talk about what it's like being a commercial airline pilot, and we're going to get into all that later on. But for this podcast, I really want to thank you for sharing your story with us. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. And
it's my pleasure, Craig. Loved being on with you, and I guess our man crushes on each other. It's good that we reconnected. Apparently,
yeah. Let me know when you come back to Montreal. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. Nick Margellos. We will see you all next week. Bye.